and he says, listen, everybody needs to leave because somebody's going to come in tonight and they're going to try to kill the whole family. I'm going to ride my bike across the country and I'm going to witness to people. That's what I want to do.
Joining us today, we have Joe. He's going to be just having a conversation today about his life and experiences. So, Joe, why don't you start off telling us a little bit about your upbringing and family?
Well, I come from probably what's considered a classic Catholic family where we had 10 children, 6 girls, 4 boys, and I was number 7, the youngest boy. It was very common. The boys had 3 in a room and the girls had as many as 4 or 5 in one bedroom because it wasn't a multi-bedroom home, wasn't a big home. I grew up in the Midwest, Indiana. Blue collar. My father was a welder for General Tire and Rubber. My mother stayed at home and raised us, and my father would go to work early every morning, and it was a common thing for my mom to say, well, your dad's working over, which was simply so 40-hour work week for Dad was not a thing. It was multiple, just simply trying to make ends meet.
How was life in your neighborhood? Were you always playing outside, socializing with the other neighborhood kids?
For the most part, a lot of great memories, and it was just blue collar. Mm-hmm. No one in the neighborhood really had anything of significance. Wasn't always the brand new car down the street or anything. It was a neighborhood.
You had what you needed and not a whole lot more.
That's correct. And if we'd go in and say, Mom, I'm hungry, her comment would be, well, eat some cereal, know. But it was, my mom made potatoes, and a lot of cheap, probably inexpensive meat. We had these things called pork spats. And
what are those?
Well, it's things that I think were probably on the bottom side of the meat product, but my mother would season them up real well, and she would tenderize them several times. Mm-hmm. But it was just a very gristly meat, a pork, very gristly, and you could chew it and it'd be almost like bubble gum. Oh, but I'm sure it was inexpensive, and they were delicious as far as tasting, but it was like pork spats. We're having pork spats tonight, Mom. But
you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do when you're feeding all those mouths. And my father didn't make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And again, as I said, my mother didn't work.
You said how many brothers and sisters, and where did you sit in the pecking order?
I had 6 sisters and 3 brothers, so there were 10 total. I was number 7, the youngest boy.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you. I even asked my sisters this not too many years ago. I was spoiled. I was spoiled. Now, talking about the pork spats, okay, and I hate to admit this, but this is what happened. The plate would be passed around. It says you got to get what you get when it gets passed around. And my mother would put the pork spats, the fried pork spats on top, and there'd be 2 pork chops on the top. And she would say, my father, who bought it, at the end of the table, now nobody else touched those pork chops. Those are for Joe.
Oh.
So I asked my sister, I said, why don't you guys take me in a closet and just pulverize me?
Yeah.
And their answer was, because you were who you were. You were Joe. We understood all that. And that's very humbling to me. It's like, who was I? Why was I so special in that? So, but that was kind of how I was treated in the family. I even asked my brother, I said, what's up? And they says, Joe, we just kind of knew you were a little bit different than the rest of us.
What do you think made it that way? Was it the order in which you were born, or was there something about you as a person or their perception of you?
Well, I think it probably had something to do with being the youngest boy, honestly. Mm-hmm. I was always very athletically inclined, so I was always in sports and excelled in sports. So it wasn't that I just played Little League. It was one of the ones that everybody knew who I was on all the teams, right? So I had the talent there. That could have had something to do with it. Growing up with 6 sisters and understanding women a little bit better and just being, I think I have a kind of a demeanor I think is appealing to people. Mm-hmm. I think it's just kind of who I am. The drama didn't end there. I mean, you're raising 10 kids and you've got some that, now nobody ever went to jail, right? So that was always good. In that neighborhood, it was really good because it was a tough neighborhood. You kind of fast forward for me, at this time my oldest brother would have been 23, 24. The brother right above me would have been 19, 20. Okay, so and my brother who's 19 or 20, he's still there. I had a trundle bed I pulled out every night. I slept on the bottom, he slept in and I'd wake up at night and my brother who slept above me typically, they'd be in the outside living room talking with my oldest brother and talking about me and scenarios about, he needs to be careful about this and maybe he can do this, or he just bizarre scenarios. So then I talked to my brother just above me. I said, what's going on? He said, well, and my oldest brother was involved in drugs, selling and doing things he shouldn't have been doing, and I think it was really getting to him. I think the paranoia was getting to him. It was getting very, very serious. And so he said, my brother Tim, who's just above me, 5 years above me, said, well, Joe, he thinks that there's going to be a big scandal about you. It's going to destroy the family. Okay, tell me about it. And so he said he really believes that that somebody is going to kill the whole family, and that you're going to have sex with some strange girl, get VD, it's going to be a big scandal. And his brain was working this way. Now I'm like, this is like reading a drama novel, right? It's like, this is my family, what's going on? Well, lo and behold, one night we are in the house, I'm on the phone, that's when we had just phones on the wall, and he comes in, he didn't live with us, he came in, he says, you about done on the phone? He said, you need to get off, I got to talk to everybody. I said, okay. So he calls everybody in the kitchen and he says, listen, everybody needs to leave because somebody's going to come in tonight and they're going to try to kill the whole family. Parents not knowing anything about this, thinking, what are you've got yourself into? What's going on? Well, I can't. So we go and go to a hotel room. And I remember I didn't sleep that whole night, even though I knew the story from my other brother of what my oldest brother was thinking. Is it true? Now I'm thinking, is it true? I mean, my goodness, he's coming in and telling us all this stuff. Is it true? I don't know if we spent 2 nights, I don't recall. But nothing came of that other than, I don't know the timing of it, but within roughly the same time, whether it's weeks or months, I don't know. We had our living room was here and the bedrooms were off the living room like so many houses are. And at this time, my brother, who was about 19 or 20, had moved out. So it was probably a matter of months. A big explosion. I wasn't in bed. It was a big explosion in that room, and we thought, so we rushed into the room, and somebody had blown out the window in that bedroom with a shotgun. Pellets were, from that day forward, in the closet door. And so we never found out who did that, but was that all related? So all these things.
Strange premonition.
Really. Huh. So now you fast forward my senior year, which is roughly a year later. Tim, who was about 20 when he was telling me these things, he thinks you're gonna pick up a hitchhiker, some strange girl, you're gonna get VD. So the story's still going. So I know this. And so my senior year, I had a few classes in the morning. I'd come home, have lunch. Then I'd go back to school for basketball practice. My oldest brother at that time had agreed to at least get some help because it was so obvious he just was not well. He had agreed to go, I think it was to Fort Wayne, Indiana, about an hour north, to go to a VA hospital, mental health. So, but when I was leaving to go back to school, he was sitting in the living room and he tells me, he says, hey, be cool. I said, yeah, okay, Will. And I knew what he meant by that because he knew this was the day, I'm driving back, I'm pitch up a hitchhiker. That was truly in his brain that was what was going to happen. So I come to, and I've shared none of this with any of my friends at school. On the outside, our family is good as gold, just good as gold. There's no craziness going on. I come into the gym, and it's dark because I was there a little early, and my coach from across the gym, he yells, "Hey Joe, call your mom. Your mom called, said she wants you to call when you get here." I said, "Okay." So I go into the office, and he's sitting behind his desk, and I'm using his phone. And I said, "Hey Mom," and she said, "Okay." He wasn't going to leave to go to Fort Wayne until he found out you got there safe and sound. She broke down on the phone as she was telling me this. So I break down and cry. Now, of course, my coach is probably thinking, "Oh my gosh, he got bad news, what's going on?" And that's when I just spilled. And my coach knew my brother. Matter of fact, my brother helped him coach. He was kind of an assistant coach for a while. So he knew him. They were about the same age. And so I just kind of spilled everything and said, "Let me tell you what our life's been like for the last 2 years." But on the outside, it's all good, right? It's all good. We did a really good job in the family of, I kind of joked that, our carpet, if you had to walk across our living room, it had bumps in it because we used to sweep everything under the rug. So, yeah.
Well, that's nothing unusual. I'm sure there's lots, if not almost all families that follow the same template.
No question about it. I mean, it just maybe different levels of drama. The drama's there. Anybody that says that, we never had any problems like that, I'm thinking,
you're lying.
I'm going to show a liar to you. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you talked a little bit about your sports stuff. So tell us a little bit about that. How did that progress throughout your life?
From Little League and then through Babe Ruth League and then high school, I had a lot of success to the point where schools, universities started talking about giving me scholarships. Now, in my family, what you do is you didn't go to college. You got out of high school and you went to work for GM, because GM, and they were all over the place up there in the Midwest where we grew up. That's kind of what you did. You went to work in the factories. Well, now, okay, because I wasn't going to go to college, I didn't think about that. Now athletics comes in. And I was fortunate enough to get an athletic scholarship. And I was never good enough to play the pros, but apparently I was good enough for them to notice me, at least to inquire. So there was a coach or a scout from the Dodgers, Los Angeles Dodgers, that said, do you think about going to college? And I said, well, I don't know. He said, I know a coach down in Louisiana. They play a really good schedule. Okay, kind of just went in one year and out the other. That's great. Sure enough, I get a call from my high school coach saying, "I just got a call from a coach in Louisiana. He wants to offer you a full scholarship to go play baseball." Whoa. So I went down and looked at the college, and I wanted to go away from home. After telling some of the stories I just told, you can kind of understand that, right? I wanted to kind of get away. So I went down and looked at the college, and I fell in love with the South. I'd never been South. I mean, that's deep South Louisiana, and I just fell in love with it. So I decided, you know what? I think I'm good with this. I think I'm going to go. So in no time at all, I get another call from my high school coach. He said, "Hey, Joe, I got the coach from Indiana University is wanting to offer you a full scholarship, and he wants to come talk to you at school." And I remember hanging up the phone. I looked at my mom, and I said, "Mom, I hate growing up. You got to make these decisions, right? Because it's Indiana University. You grew up in Indiana. It's Indiana University." So I met with the coach, but there was caveats to this. First of all, I really didn't care for him I didn't connect with him too much, but also he wants to offer me a full scholarship if, and he's looking at another guy in another town. We want to give him the full scholarship, but we think he's going to get drafted. If he signs with the pros, then it's open. We'll give it to you. If not, we'll give you a half scholarship. It was kind of ifs, and I already had a full scholarship coming my way, and we couldn't afford to send me to school. There was no way. So I ended up going to Louisiana and playing for Northeast Louisiana University, and had I think a good career, knowing that I was never going any further. I think some people thought in my family thought, he's going to go. No, I knew how good you had to be, and I was not that good. But I went to college to play baseball. And it showed, because I didn't apply myself academically. I went to class and maybe took some notes, but then after a while I had to wake up because I was on academic probation 3 times, and I was academically suspended once. And I remember my coach just really got all over me, my college coach. It's like, what are you doing? You know, so I got serious and was able to get my GPA up and graduated from college and looked around till I got a job, and ultimately I ended up getting a job with the university recruiting, and I stayed in education. God does have a sense of humor. Somebody who limped through college, I'm now the one recruiting students into college and looking at their credentials to see if they can get into college. So about 37 years in higher education. And again, it's something, would I have picked that? No, but it just kind of happened. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad I ended it with a Christian school, because mm-hmm. I was not a believer. I didn't turn a believer until I was 45 years old. Mm-hmm. So all that time representing these Christian institutions as a non-believer. But I understood that. I understood, being respectful of what they believed. It wasn't for me. I didn't even know what I believed at that time, but God kind of got a hold of me.
Maybe that's a good segue into your life before you adopted, Christianity, mm-hmm. presumably as your religion. Mm-hmm. How would you describe your life before and after?
I described myself as, prior to Christ, that I was a nice guy going to hell. If people would have said, what do you think about Joe? It'd have been, hey, Joe's a nice guy, he's respectful, all those nice things they would say about it, but none of it really mattered when it comes to your faith. Where it made a difference, I was married, I think, at 25, didn't have Christ in my marriage at all. Neither of us were believers, but I was married 19 years, and she didn't want to be married anymore. After 19 years, that's all she could tell me. I just don't want to be married anymore. So it was a pretty, kick in the gut, as you can imagine. But it was during that time God really got a hold of me. And He put things in front of me well in advance of knowing when I would need them. I had a Bible on tape. And so during this time of separation, then ultimately divorce, I came to know the Lord. And that was an epiphany to me, that I just couldn't believe when I'd start reading Scripture. It's like it just made absolute sense to me. When a month earlier, it had been something I wouldn't even picked up and looked at. Only because God has this way sometimes of taking us to a point where we have no answers. I was the kind of guy, you put your feet on the floor in the morning, how do you resolve your problems? How do I resolve my problems? And He said, okay, you think you can do this? Okay, I'm going to give you so much that you're going to realize you can't do this. And I was losing a house to foreclosure that I had owned up in North Carolina. Financially, it was in ruins. The marriage was falling apart. And it was pretty devastating. And then I turned to Him. My sister was my lifeline out in Colorado. She was a believer. And so I talked to her, and she would witness to me. It was like, yeah, Julian, it's good. Good for you, not for me. Mm-hmm. Well, I was listening to a cassette. It shows you how long, I'm not sure they make cassettes anymore, but a little Walkman cassette. I would listen to Bible, books on tape or music. But when I was seeking, I put this cassette in. It was a Bible on tape. It was a New Testament, kind of a dramatization of the New Testament, music, different voices. And I'd ride my bike. It was about 7 miles. I would ride my bike to work because I didn't drive. And I would just start weeping for no reason. And it's like, what is going on? And so I talked to my sister, Julie, what's going on? She said, Joe, that's the Holy Spirit working in you. Okay, you got to help me out there. What do you mean, like the Holy Ghost? Like, of course, growing up Catholic, it's the Holy Ghost, right? Yeah, it's the Spirit. God's Spirit is working on you. And so that was just an epiphany to me, that I just got on fire, and it just never stopped. And when He showed up in a tangible way is when, during the separation, before my first marriage divorce. It was separation, and I just moved down the sidewalk into an efficiency. We lived in a townhouse, and of course at night, I always said the demons come at night, the thoughts in your head, the car's gone, where is she, who's she with, all those nonsense stuff, the demons come at night. And it was night after night, it was terrible. And so I just cried out to the Lord, Lord, you got to take this away. I mean, it was audible. I probably lived in a place this big as this living room, not very big. You got to take this away, this pain away. I just can't deal with this anymore. It's just awful. Louis, the next morning I woke up and it was gone. Those type of emotions hit you like waves, right? They knock your knees out from underneath you a lot of times. You think you're okay and all of a sudden, bam, they hit you. So I kept waiting for that. Never happened. Never came back. Never came back. To the point where I was able even to counsel her somewhat because her life was a mess too, but it never came back. And it's like God showed up in such a tangible way. It's like, wow, this is real. And so I'd tell everybody. I'd just tell everybody, you know me, guys, you know me, but I'm telling you, this is real. But it was so powerful. But was I a different person to the people on the outside that knew me than I was now? In many ways, no. Because again, I don't have the story of I was just heathen, just living this terrible life, and now I'm just changed completely. Not so much, but it was the spirit and the how I saw life. It was different now in that regard, and to the point where I wanted to serve who God was. I just wanted to serve Him. I told my sister out in Colorado, I said, Joel, I just want to serve. I don't know what He wants me to do. I want to do something for Him. Like I'm sure a lot of new believers do. It's like, what can I do? I want to be a pastor. I want to do this. I want to do that. And she's very wise, Joe. Just pray about it. God will show you how. And I really felt one day that I was riding my bike, and I just thought, I'm going to ride my bike across the country, and I'm going to witness to people. That's what I want to do.
So did you end up doing that?
No. God had different plans. At church, I met a lady in one of the small groups. We would just talk. And so I prayed one day. I said, Lord, this relationship that I'm not looking for is supposed to be something you got to show me. Well, she always sat in the front, first pew, aisle side. I always sat about 6 rows back on the opposite side. So I'm singing the hymns at the beginning of the church, and she's not there. And of course, I'm holding because I grew up Catholic. I don't know the hymns. We didn't sing a lot of hymns in the Catholic Church. So I'm reading the words, singing, and somebody nudges me and asks me to move over, and it's her. And here we are 21 plus years later with Christ in the middle of our relationship, or we got 3 people in this relationship, and that's important to us, and we know that's what gets us through. So did I go on the bike ride? No, but then I had to tell people. So when I told people I wasn't going, every single one who was supportive when I told them, every single one said, thank goodness you're not going. We were so worried for you. And so instead, He's got us involved in ministry, marriage ministry.
Okay. Well, you mentioned your vision, so tell us a little bit about that.
It was interesting. I was a sophomore in college in Louisiana, and our baseball field was here, and they were building a brand new football stadium right next door, where they'd pound the pylons in, dust from the bulldozers, the whole bit kicked up. And you think nothing about it, but I had developed my glands in my throat, my hands, my feet, and kind of just felt kind of lousy for a week. The glands would swell up. And so I went to the infirmary, and they said, well, I think you got some kind of virus, but it'll go. And it did. It just went away. Whew. Okay. Fast forward 11 years. I am working, and my eyes, I start getting distortion in my eyes. I start seeing things that aren't there. Like I was driving, and a car would come up beside me, and it looked like the top of the car was crushed in initially. I'd look, and of course it wasn't. Or if I'm on a document and there's a straight line, it looks like the straight line was distorted and dipped down. And I'm thinking, okay, something's going on. So I called the doc and an ophthalmologist saying, here's what's going on with me. They immediately referred me to a place. I was working up in Marion, Indiana at the time. They referred me to a doctor in Indianapolis without even seeing me. They were on the phone. They said, you need to go down to him. We've already called. He was a subretinal specialist. So they think it may be a detached retina. So I go down there, and he comes in, Dr. James Fountain, was his name, and he looks at me and he says, okay, you don't have a detached retina, but what you have is very serious and you're going blind, and we need to treat this now. That's one of those moments in life where it just stops. He said, because I only knew blindness is total darkness. I didn't know there was a legal blindness. So that was pretty frightening. He said I had this disease called, the long terminology is subretinal neovascularization secondary to histoplasmosis. Histoplasmosis is a fungus. It's in the river valley areas of the United States. Guess where one of those areas are? Louisiana. During that time, I must have ingested, and I'm sure it's like anything, some people get impacted, some people don't. I ingested it, caused the glands to swell, and then it goes away. Well, what I didn't know at the time, it caused scarring in the back of my eyes. Pretty benign, didn't impact my vision. Now fast forward, when I hit about 30, these scars start bleeding. They don't know why, they just do. Autoimmune. And so the only way to fix them and stop, because where they bleed, if they bleed, they're going to take all your vision. So they have to laser. So I've had multiple laser surgeries in my eyes, both eyes. And it stopped when I was 40. Pretty classic. It starts when you're 30, stops when you're 40. They don't know why it starts. They don't know why it stops. It just does. So it's been this way. But I don't have any central vision at all. I only have peripheral vision. That's why I can't really drive. I have a lot of magnifications. But someone told me once, early on in that disease, they said, you don't feel, it seems like you've lost your joy. You just don't seem the same. I went some counseling and I thought I was doing okay, but you kind of lost your joy. But part of my testimony is, okay, while I lost my physical joy, or my joy of life, because I lost my physical vision, I now have got the real joy, which is the spiritual vision of it. Right, because the joy is about how it's not happiness, it's joy. It only comes, that type of joy comes from knowing Christ and knowing what He can do in your life and what He has done in your life. I really believe God's plan is perfect for us, and He uses whatever He needs to use to do that, whether it's bad or good. I made a decision to go to Louisiana, the River Valley area of the United States. I get fungus in my eyes as a non-believer. Part of my vision is part of my journey to who God is. And so people look at me and say, wow, you really do well. I mean, gosh, you got such a great attitude. Well, you got two ways to go. Do I sit in the corner and just think about what I can't do anymore? Or do I say, you know what, this is what it is, I'm going to move forward and I'm going to get around it and do what I can. But I joke. I'm hoping they got fast food restaurants in heaven, because I'm going to stand in front of the counter and I'm ordering off the menu there, because I'll be able to read it in heaven. I can't read it now. So. But it's my life. It's my life.
With all those things in mind and the journey that you've been through, is there any bits of wisdom or general advice that you'd like to share for the upcoming generations?
Life, in a big part, is about attitude and how we view things. When you are dealt with a lot of difficulty in your life, and we all are, we're not humans if we're not experiencing those at various levels. Faith is one aspect of it, for sure. We can't do it on our own. As I mentioned in a little bit of my story, I used to think, I can do this. What do I need to do to overcome this? Well, at some point we reach the end of that rope. We can't do it anymore with it. So God will carry us that way. He wants to show us we can't do it. But at the same time, our faith is not a passive faith. Our life is not a passive life. We have to take the attitude of saying, how do I overcome that? What do I need to do to make an impact on life and make an impact? I look back on people in my life that impacted me. I mentioned my oldest brother. He really pushed me hard, and there's some scars that I have about, am I good enough for this or that? But at the same time, he helped me excel in certain parts of my life. And then, of course, we have to play that forward. As when we get old, God gives us those experiences and wisdoms, not to hold on to, not to write a book. Don't condense it there. Play it out to people that He puts in your sphere. We're in God's classroom every day. Sometimes we're in elementary classrooms. Sometimes we're in doctoral classrooms. But we have to determine, okay, Lord, what is the content you want me to learn out of this? And how do I apply it? Because the world will break us down. We need somebody to smile at us and say, how's your day? And really mean, how's your day? And not just, how's your day? And then move on, because I really don't care how your day is. I just wanted to greet you. No, sincerely mean that. I think those are things that I would think we need to do. Young people need mentors. We're in a position as the older folks, as we grow older, we need to pour into it instead of bringing it closer to us. There's young people out there who just, and I'm not talking about 16, 17-year-olds only. I'm talking about, in my case, younger could be a lot younger. I mean, they could be 40. That's younger people, right? So I got a good life. God's blessed me, and I look forward to, whatever time I have left. What can I do? I'm not perfect, and I have my times, but I think that's what we need to do. We need to think outside ourselves. That would be something I think we need to do. I think God would be pleased with that.
I think we've touched on a lot of valuable topics, and I just want to thank you very much, Joe, for joining us today for this conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity.